I stepped off that red eye from Tbilisi with dried blood under my fingernails and the kind of exhaustion that comes from 3 weeks of sleeping in safe houses. The black dress I wore was the same one I'd packed in a hurry when the call came through. Emergency extraction. Asset compromised. Get on the plane. That was 4 days before Christmas, and Kenneth never asked questions anymore. After 28 years of marriage to a woman who disappeared for weeks at a time, he'd learned not to. The funny thing about being a ghost is that people forget you can come back. Winchester, Virginia looked exactly the same as it always did in December. White Christmas lights wrapped around the lampposts on Main Street. The Apple Blossom Diner still had that crooked wreath on the door. And First Baptist Church, where my grandmother was baptized in 1942, stood on the corner like it had been waiting for me. I hadn't planned to go to church that Sunday morning. I'd planned to drive straight to the lakehouse, the one my father left me when he died, the place where I was supposed to feel safe. But something pulled me there. Maybe it was muscle memory. Maybe it was the Holy Spirit. Or maybe it was just that a woman who spent 3 decades working black ops for the CIA develops an instinct for when something's wrong. The sanctuary was warm, smelled like old hymnals, and Martha Carter's expensive perfume. I slipped in through the side door just as Pastor Mike was welcoming everyone, and I could feel the shift in the room before I even saw them. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the pews like a wind moving through wheat. Because Olivia Carter had vanished the same week that Amelia Gray, the 38-year-old guidance counselor at Winchester High, got into that terrible car wreck on Route 50. The one that totaled her Honda but somehow left her without a scratch. The one that happened right after homecoming weekend. People had been talking about it for weeks, wondering where I was, why I wasn't there, whether Kenneth was okay. I smiled. Nodded. Walked down that center aisle in my black boots like I owned the place. And then I saw them. Kenneth was sitting in the 4th row. Our row. The pew where we'd sat every Sunday since 1996 when we moved back to Winchester so he could take over his father's insurance agency. But he wasn't alone. On his right sat his mother, Martha, in her cream-colored suit with the pearl buttons. On his left was his sister Mia, who taught 2nd grade and always wore too much blush. And between Mia and the aisle, sitting in the exact spot where I'd sat for 28 years, was Amelia Gray. She had her hand on the armrest, the same armrest where I'd rested my hand every Sunday while we sang hymns about grace and forgiveness. I stopped walking. The organ music swelled. Martha saw me first, and I watched the color drain from her face like someone had pulled a plug. Then Kenneth turned, and for just a second, just one beautiful second, I saw fear flash across his eyes. Not guilt. Fear. That told me everything. I pulled out my phone, slow and deliberate, and snapped a photo. The click echoed in that quiet moment, between the prelude and the opening prayer. Mia's mouth fell open. Amelia looked confused, like she couldn't quite figure out why the woman in the black dress was photographing her in church. But Kenneth knew, and Martha knew. I turned around and walked back down that aisle, my boots making soft thuds on the old carpet, and I didn't look back. Outside, the December air hit my face like cold water. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from clarity. From the sudden, sharp understanding that the marriage I thought I'd been protecting all these years by staying silent about my work, by disappearing into the dark places of the world so Kenneth could live his normal life in Winchester, that marriage had died a long time ago. Maybe it died when he stopped asking where I went. Maybe it died when Martha started making comments about how much time I spent away from home. Maybe it died the first time Amelia Gray sat in my spot at church and nobody said a word. I sat in my car and looked at the photo on my phone. Kenneth's face, Martha's pearls, Mia's blush, Amelia's confusion, all of them together in that pew like a family portrait. And then I thought about the lakehouse. My lakehouse, the one my father built with his own hands on the shore of Lake Frederick, 15 miles outside of town. The one I inherited when he died, the one Kenneth always said was too far to visit regularly, The one I hadn't been to in months because I'd been in Tbilisi, then Prague, then a village in Azerbaijan, whose name I'll never be allowed to say out loud. I started the engine and drove. The house looked perfect from the road. Fresh paint on the shutters, new welcome mat, landscaping that hadn't been there in the spring. I parked down the street, walked through the woods the way I'd been trained, and approached from the back. That's when I saw the camera. Small, expensive, pointed at the driveway, the kind of camera you install when you want to know exactly when someone's coming home. I stood there in the trees, still wearing that black dress, and smiled. Because Kenneth Carter had no idea who he'd been lying to for 4 years. He thought he married a woman who traveled for work. He thought he married someone who wouldn't notice, someone who wouldn't care. He didn't marry Olivia Margaret Carter, retired CIA operative. He married a woman who toppled governments before breakfast. I sat in my car down the street from the lakehouse and let myself remember the short version of 28 years. I grew up in Clark County picking apples in my uncle's orchard. Dirt under my fingernails and dreams, too big for a town where everyone knew your business before you did. I was 17 when a recruiter from Georgetown noticed my language test scores, 18 when I left for college, 22 when the CIA came calling with an offer that sounded like fiction. They wanted a girl who could disappear, someone nobody would miss. Someone from a small town who understood how to blend in, how to listen, how to become invisible. I was good at it, better than good. By the time I was 30, I'd run operations in places whose names still make diplomats nervous. I spoke 4 languages fluently and could fake 3 more well enough to stay alive. I'd been shot twice, stabbed once, and decorated 7 times in ceremonies I couldn't tell anyone about. And then I came home to Winchester for my cousin's wedding and met Kenneth Carter. He taught history at Winchester High. Tall, handsome, with that easy Virginia charm that made everyone like him instantly. He wore khakis and button-downs and talked about the Revolutionary War like it happened yesterday. He had no idea what I really did for a living. I told him I worked for the State Department. He believed me because he wanted to. We got married in 1996 at First Baptist. His mother Martha wore white to my wedding. Should have known then. Kenneth was 26 and making $32,000 a year when I put the down payment on our first house, a modest colonial in Middleburg with good bones and a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I paid cash. He didn't ask where the money came from. He just signed his name on the deed and told his friends he'd married well. His father died 2 years later and left Kenneth the insurance agency. It did okay. Not great, but okay. Enough for Kenneth to feel like he was contributing. Enough for him to hold his head up at Rotary Club meetings and pretend he was the breadwinner. But I was the one who paid off the mortgage. I was the one who wrote the checks for the new roof, the kitchen renovation, the landscaping. I was the one who funded his mother's move into assisted living when her pension ran out. And when Mia's husband left her with 2 kids and a teaching salary that barely covered groceries, I was the one who paid for private school tuition at Shenandoah Valley Academy. $14,000 a year, per kid, for 6 years. I never said no. I never complained. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You take care of their family. You make their life easier. You sacrifice. But here's what I learned sitting in that car outside my grandmother's lake house. Sacrifice only works when it's mutual. Martha and Mia never once called me by my first name, not in 28 years. When I was in the room, I was Kenneth's wife. When I wasn't, I was simply the Carter money. I heard Mia say it once at Thanksgiving when she thought I was in the bathroom. She was talking to her daughter about college applications, and she said, "Don't worry, honey, the Carter money will take care of it." Like I was a trust fund, like I was a resource to be tapped whenever they needed something. Kenneth never corrected them. He just smiled and nodded and let his mother pour another glass of wine while his sister made plans for my money. I got out of the car and walked back through the woods toward the lake house. The sun was setting. painting the sky pink and gold over Lake Frederick, and I could see lights on inside. Movement through the curtains. Someone was home. My grandmother left me this house in 1994. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a wraparound porch, and a dock where she used to fish for bass every Sunday afternoon. She built this place with her husband in 1953, raised 4 kids here, buried 2 of them, and held on until she was 89 years old. She left it to me because she knew I'd protect it, because she knew I understood the difference between a house and a home. Kenneth always said it was too far from town to visit regularly, too much upkeep, too isolated. He suggested we rent it out, maybe sell it, use the money for something practical. I said no, this house wasn't for sale. So, he stopped asking. I moved closer, staying in the shadows the way I'd been trained. The camera by the driveway was still recording, but there were blind spots. There are always blind spots if you know where to look. Through the kitchen window I could see her, Amelia Gray, wearing an apron I'd never seen before, cooking at my grandmother's stove. She was smiling, humming something, completely comfortable in a house that wasn't hers. And then Kenneth walked in behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, kissed her neck. She laughed and turned around, and they stood there in my kitchen like a couple from a commercial selling dishwasher detergent and the American dream. I pulled out my phone and took another photo, added it to the collection I'd started at church. Then I saw the calendar on the wall, one of those cheap ones from the pharmacy with pictures of puppies. Someone had marked dates in red ink, circled weekends, written little notes in handwriting I recognized as Martha's. December 3rd through 10th. O in Prague. December 17th through 24th. O in Georgia. January 14th through 21st. O in Turkey. They'd been tracking my deployments, coordinating their schedule around my absence, turning my grandmother's house into their private retreat every time I left the country. For 4 years. I stood there in the cold December darkness and felt something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak. I'd gotten past that back at the church. This was something colder, cleaner. This was operational clarity. Because Olivia Margaret Carter didn't cry. She planned. Christmas Eve, 2024, I was sitting in our dining room in Middleburg watching Kenneth carve a 20-pound turkey when my phone buzzed. Restricted number. I excused myself, walked into the garage, and answered. Langley. Emergency extraction needed in Moldova. Asset in critical danger. 72 hours maximum. Wheels up in 6 hours. I hung up and stood there in the cold garage next to Kenneth's BMW, the one I'd bought him for his 50th birthday, and I thought about all the Christmases I'd missed. All the deployments that came through on holidays because crises don't care about your family dinner plans. I walked back inside. Kenneth was pouring wine for Martha and Mia. His nephew was showing everyone photos from his semester in London. The private semester I'd paid for. I waited until dessert. Then I said it. I have to fly out tomorrow morning, medical conference in Seattle. Rare opportunity. I'll be back by the 28th. Kenneth didn't even look surprised. He just nodded, took another bite of pecan pie, and said, "That's too bad, honey, we'll miss you." Martha smiled that tight smile she always gave me. Mia squeezed my hand and said, "We understand. Your work is so important." I went upstairs to pack, and that's when I heard Kenneth on the phone in his study. Door closed, but not all the way. His voice low and excited. "She's leaving tomorrow." "Yeah, Christmas morning. Seattle. Some conference thing. This is perfect. Call your mom, tell Amelia. We'll do the whole week at the lake. Full Carter family Christmas." I stood in the hallway and listened to my husband plan a holiday with his mistress in my grandmother's house while I risked my life in Eastern Europe. And something inside me that had been cracking for 4 years finally broke clean through. I left for Dulles Airport at 4 in the morning, kissed Kenneth goodbye. He was still half asleep, mumbling something about staying safe, and I remember thinking how easy it had become for both of us to lie. The Moldova job was textbook: extract the asset, get him across the Romanian border, debrief in Bucharest. I was done in 60 hours. But I told Langley I needed the full 72 for personal reasons. They didn't ask questions. After 30 years of perfect service, I'd earned a few hours of discretion. I flew to a hotel in Bucharest and opened my laptop. The lakehouse security system was something I'd installed back in 2011. Top-grade agency surveillance, 6 cameras, motion sensors, audio in every room. I'd told Kenneth it was because the house was isolated, and I worried about break-ins when we weren't there. The real reason was buried in the foundation. During the Cold War, my grandmother's lakehouse had been used as a dead-drop location, a place where assets could leave intelligence packages that I'd retrieved during family visits. It was perfect cover. Who would suspect a covert operation running out of a sweet old lady's fishing cottage in rural Virginia? After she died and left me the house, Langley asked if they could keep using it occasionally. I said yes, which meant I needed serious security. The kind that could alert me if anyone who wasn't supposed to be there showed up looking for classified material. The system had been dormant for years. The dead drop program ended in 2016 when we shifted to digital protocols, but the cameras still worked, the audio still recorded. And with the right access codes, I could pull a live satellite feed from anywhere in the world. I entered my credentials and watched the screen load. Then I saw them. Kenneth and Amelia, in my grandmother's bedroom, his mother in the kitchen making her famous green bean casserole, Mia and her kids decorating a Christmas tree in the living room, the nephew I'd sent to London playing guitar on the porch. They'd brought presents, stockings with everyone's names embroidered on them, hung over the fireplace. A whole second Christmas happening in my house while I was supposed to be in Seattle. I watched Amelia open a gift from Kenneth, a necklace, silver with a small diamond. He put it on her and kissed her, and everyone clapped like it was the most natural thing in the world. Martha raised a glass of wine and made a toast. I turned up the audio. To family, to finally having our traditions back, to not having to pretend anymore. Mia laughed and said amen to that, and they all drank. Not having to pretend anymore. I sat in that hotel room in Romania and watched my husband's family celebrate their freedom from me. Watched them eat dinner at my grandmother's table. Watched them sing carols in front of a tree they'd decorated with ornaments that belonged to my family, not his. And then I watched Kenneth take Amelia's hand and lead her to the master bedroom. The room where my grandmother died. The room with the quilt she made by hand in 1973. I closed the laptop. Checked the calendar. New Year's Eve was 6 days away. I opened a secure file on my hard drive and started documenting everything: screenshots, video files, audio transcripts, timestamps. I built a case the way I'd been trained to build cases: clean, thorough, unbreakable. Then I booked a flight home. Not to Middleburg, to Winchester. Because if Kenneth wanted to play house in my lake house, then I was going to show him what happens when you underestimate a woman who spent 30 years outsmarting enemies of the state. I'd toppled governments without firing a shot. I'd dismantled terrorist cells with nothing but patience and information. I'd ended careers, destroyed operations, and eliminated threats using nothing but the truth delivered at exactly the right moment. Kenneth Carter had no idea what was coming. But he was about to learn that the most dangerous weapon in the world isn't a gun or a bomb. It's a woman who knows exactly how to use the truth. I sat in a hotel room in Chisinau with the curtains drawn and my laptop open on the desk. Outside, snow was falling on Moldova's capital city. Inside, I was watching my marriage end in real time on a screen that showed 6 different camera angles of my grandmother's lake house. It was December 27th. I'd completed the extraction 2 days early. The asset was safe in Bucharest. My job was done, but I couldn't bring myself to fly home yet. Because I needed to see it. All of it. I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. The first thing I noticed was the cars. 8 of them parked in the driveway and along the road. Kenneth's BMW, Amelia's Honda, Martha's Lexus, Mia's minivan, and 4 others I didn't recognize. I counted heads as they moved through the house. 11 people. 11 relatives having a Christmas celebration in my house while I was supposed to be at a medical conference in Seattle. Kenneth's cousin from Charlottesville, Mia's ex-husband, the one who supposedly couldn't afford child support, Martha's sister from Richmond, even Kenneth's Aunt Dorothy, who I'd paid to keep in her nursing home for the last 3 years at $4,000 a month. They were all there, eating my food, drinking my wine, sleeping in my beds. I watched Mia give a house tour to someone I didn't recognize. She walked through each room like a realtor showing off a property, pointing out the original hardwood floors, the stone fireplace, the view of the lake. She opened the closet in the master bedroom, and I could see Amelia's clothes hanging next to Kenneth's. They'd moved her in, not for a weekend. They'd actually moved her into my grandmother's house. Then Martha appeared on camera in the kitchen. She was holding a bottle I recognized immediately, my grandmother's bourbon. A 30-year-old Pappy Van Winkle that my grandfather bought in 1994, the year before he died. It had been sitting in the cabinet above the sink, untouched, because everyone knew that bottle was sacred. Martha opened it, poured it into cheap glasses, passed them around to everyone in the room. I watched my husband's mother toast with my grandmother's bourbon, and I felt something cold settle into my bones. But it got worse. Mia pulled out her phone and started recording, an Instagram story. I pulled up her public profile on my own phone and watched it load in real time. The video showed the living room, the Christmas tree, everyone smiling and laughing, and the caption read, "Finally feels like our lake house. Heart emoji. Christmas tree emoji, home emoji. Our lake house." Like it belonged to them. Like I'd never existed. I scrolled through more posts. Amelia had put up photos too. Her and Kenneth on the dock at sunset. Her in my grandmother's kitchen making breakfast. Her wearing a sweater I recognized from my own closet. The comments were full of friends from Winchester saying how beautiful the house was, how happy they looked, how wonderful it must be to have a family place like that. Nobody asked where I was. Nobody mentioned Kenneth's wife. I was already gone in their minds, already erased. I poured myself a vodka from the minibar and went back to the laptop. Switched to the audio feed from the living room. Martha was talking. Her voice clear through the speakers. "One more trip, and we'll make Kenneth file. Virginia is community property, honey. That lake house is half his, no matter what her grandmother's will says. We'll get a good lawyer. Get him out of that marriage with at least $3 million, plus the Middleburg house, plus his share of this place." Kenneth was sitting right there, listening, not objecting, not defending me. Just nodding. Mia chimed in, her voice bright and excited, and then Amelia can finally stop sneaking around. They can get married properly. Have the wedding here at the lake. Wouldn't that be perfect? Martha laughed. "Oh, honey, we'll throw the best wedding this county has ever seen, and we'll use Olivia's money to pay for it." They all laughed, even Kenneth. I sat in that hotel room 6,000 miles away and watched my husband laugh about using my money to marry his mistress in my grandmother's house. I drank the vodka, then I poured another one. On the screen, someone suggested taking a group photo. They all gathered on the porch, arms around each other, smiling like a catalog family. Martha stood in the center holding that bottle of 30-year-old bourbon. Kenneth had his arm around Amelia. Mia's kids were making peace signs at the camera. They looked happy. Genuinely happy. Happier than they'd ever looked when I was there. I watched that photo get posted to 3 different Instagram accounts with captions about family and tradition and coming home. And then I watched Kenneth take Amelia to the master bedroom again, watched him close the door, watched the light go off. I closed the laptop. Finished me vodka. And I realized I wasn't crying anymore. I'd cried in the car outside the church. I'd cried in the woods behind the lakehouse. I'd cried when I first opened the laptop and saw them all there together. But now, watching my husband plan to divorce me and steal my inheritance and marry his mistress in my grandmother's house, I wasn't crying at all. I was doing math. Calculating, planning, running scenarios the way I'd been trained to run operations. Because this wasn't personal anymore, this was tactical. And Olivia Margaret Carter didn't lose. I opened the laptop back up and started downloading files. Every video, every audio clip, every screenshot, every Instagram post. I organized them by date, by person, by location. Built a timeline. Cross-referenced stories. I had 6 days until New Year's Eve. That was plenty of time. The call came through at 11:30 at night on December 25th. I was in my hotel room in Chisinau, already packed, already planning my next move. The number on my phone was Langley. Mission abort. Asset compromised. Extraction team compromised. Get out now. 31 hours. That's all the Moldova operation lasted before it fell apart. Someone talked. Someone always talks. By midnight, I was on a military transport to Ramstein Air Base in Germany. By 2 in the morning, I was on a commercial flight to Dulles. No first class, no comfortable seat. Just me and a carry-on bag, and 8 hours to think about what I'd seen on those security cameras. I landed at Dulles at 3 in the morning on December 26th. The airport was nearly empty. Just a few exhausted travelers and cleaning crews and the hum of fluorescent lights. I walked through customs, climbed into my black F-150 inches long-term parking, and started driving west. It was raining. That cold December rain that turns everything gray and makes the roads slick. I drove through Leesburg, through Middelburg, past the colonial house where Kenneth was supposed to be sleeping. But I knew he wasn't there. I knew exactly where he was. I reached the lakehouse just after 5 in the morning. The sky was starting to lighten, but the sun hadn't come up yet. I parked a quarter-mile down the road, hidden behind a stand of pine trees, and pulled out my laptop. The cameras were still running. I could see lights on in the kitchen, movement. Someone was awake. I switched to thermal imaging, counted the heat signatures. Still 11 people in the house, Kenneth and Amelia in the master bedroom, Martha in the guest room, Mia and her kids in the converted attic space, everyone else scattered throughout. Then I watched Amelia come downstairs in a bathrobe I recognized. My bathrobe, the white one with the embroidered initials my mother gave me for my 40th birthday. She started making coffee, my coffee, from my grandmother's kitchen, using my wedding china to set the table. Kenneth came down a few minutes later. Kissed her. Wrapped his arms around her waist. While she made breakfast. Like they'd been doing this for years. Because they had been doing this for years. By 6:30, everyone was awake. They gathered around the dining room table, the one my grandfather built in 1956, and ate scrambled eggs and bacon off plates I'd registered for at Macy's in 1995. The china with the delicate blue flowers that I'd picked out because Kenneth said it reminded him of his grandmother's. I zoomed in on their faces. They were laughing, talking, planning. Mia had a notebook. She was writing things down, doing calculations, pointing at numbers. I turned up the audio. Her voice came through clear. If we can force her to sell in the spring, split it 4 ways for the grandkids' college funds, we're looking at maybe $400,000 each. The place is worth at least $1.6 million. Waterfront property in Clark County? That's conservative. Martha nodded. And Kenneth gets half in the divorce anyway. Virginia is community property. Doesn't matter that her grandmother left it to her. Marital assets are marital assets. Kenneth was quiet, just eating his eggs, not objecting, not defending me, not saying maybe we shouldn't be planning to steal my wife's inheritance while she's out of the country working. Just nodding along like this was reasonable. Amelia spoke up, her voice soft but excited. Do you really think we could have the wedding here, after everything settles? Martha reached over and squeezed her hand. Honey, this will be your house. Yours and Kenneth's. We'll make sure of it. I sat in my truck in the rain and recorded everything. 42 seconds of crystal clear video and audio. Mia's calculations. Martha's legal advice. Amelia's wedding plans. Kenneth's silence. Then I opened my contacts and found the name I was looking for. David Brennan, president of the Loudoun County School Board, 63 years old, deacon at First Baptist. The same man who'd shaken my hand in church 4 days ago and told me how good it was to see me home for the holidays. The same man who was technically Amelia Gray's boss. Because guidance counselors at Winchester High reported to the principal, who reported to the superintendent, who reported to the school board. I attached the video file. Typed a short message. David, I hope you and Margaret had a beautiful Christmas. I wanted to bring something to your attention regarding Amelia Gray, guidance counselor at Winchester High. This video was taken this morning at my private residence, without my knowledge or permission. I think you'll find it relevant to the county's Code of Conduct policies. The other individuals present include my husband Kenneth Carter, Martha Carter, and Mia Harrison, second-grade teacher at Apple Blossom Elementary. Happy holidays. Olivia Carter. I read it twice. Made sure the tone was professional, concerned, the tone of a woman who was trying to do the right thing, not the tone of a woman who was about to burn their entire world down. Then I hit send. The email went through at 6:47 in the morning. I closed the laptop and watched the house, watched them finish breakfast, watched them clean up using my dish towels and put everything away in my cabinets like they owned the place. David Brennan was an early riser. I knew because I'd sat next to him at church fundraisers. He was always the first one there, coffee in hand, ready to talk business. My phone buzzed at 7:15. A text from David. Olivia, I just received your email. I need to speak with you immediately. This is very serious. Can you call me? I typed back. I'm available anytime. This has been going on for some time, and I felt it was my duty to inform the board. His response came fast. I'm calling an emergency meeting. Do not discuss this with anyone. We'll handle it. I set my phone down and smiled. Because that's how it starts. Not with confrontation, not with drama. With one email to the right person at the right time. The first domino had just fallen. Between December 26th and December 30th, I became a ghost in my own life. I didn't go home to Middleburg. I didn't call Kenneth. I stayed in a hotel in Leesburg and watched the dominoes start to fall. David Brennan moved fast. By December 27th, Amelia Gray was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. By December 28th, the school board had opened a formal inquiry into conduct violations. By December 29th, Mia Harrison was called in for questioning about her presence at a residence owned by a family member of a colleague under investigation. I watched it all unfold through careful phone calls to friends who worked in the school system, through text messages from concerned church members who'd heard rumors, through the absolute silence from Kenneth, who still had no idea I was back in Virginia. On December 30th, I drove to the lakehouse at dawn. I came prepared, a locksmith from Charlottesville who didn't ask questions, new deadbolts, smart locks with codes only I knew, motion sensors for every door and window. I worked methodically, room by room, erasing every trace of their presence. I threw out the sheets from the master bedroom, emptied Amelia's clothes from the closet into garbage bags, found Kenneth's reading glasses on the nightstand and snapped them in half. Small, petty, satisfying. In the kitchen, I poured out what was left of my grandmother's bourbon. Watched 30-year-old whiskey go down the drain and felt nothing. It was already ruined the moment Martha opened it. I scrubbed the house clean, washed every dish, vacuumed every floor, removed every trace that 11 people had spent Christmas here without my permission. By noon, the place looked exactly like it had when my grandmother was alive. Perfect, pristine, mine. Then I sat down at the dining room table with a pen and paper. Dear Mother Carter, I wrote in my neatest handwriting, the handwriting I'd learned in 3rd grade at Clark County Elementary. The handwriting Martha had once called common. I'll be home New Year's Eve. Can't wait for a cozy family night together. Let's make it special. Love, Olivia. I read it 3 times. The tone was perfect, warm, unsuspecting. The tone of a woman who had no idea what her family had been doing. A woman who just wanted to spend the holiday with the people she loved. I put it in an envelope, addressed it to Martha's assisted living facility in Winchester, added a stamp, dropped it in the mail. Because I'd seen the group chat. I'd hacked Mia's phone 2 days ago, a skill I'd learned in a CIA training facility in 2011. The messages were all there. Every plan, every detail. New Year's Eve blowout at the lake. Final celebration before Olivia gets back, and we have to pretend again. Bring champagne, bring the kids. Kenneth's filing for divorce in January, and we need to celebrate properly. Amelia's bringing her famous crab dip. This is our house now. They were planning a party. A victory party. To celebrate stealing my house and ending my marriage, and getting away with it all. Martha had responded with 3 champagne emojis and, finally, let's toast to new beginnings. My note would throw them off balance, make them nervous, make them wonder if I suspected something, but not enough to cancel. Because people like Martha Carter don't cancel parties. They double down. They get defensive. They convince themselves they've done nothing wrong. I knew exactly what would happen. Martha would call Kenneth. Kenneth would call Amelia. They'd have a panicked conversation, but ultimately they'd decide I was bluffing. That I couldn't possibly know. That they'd been too careful. And they'd show up anyway. I spent the rest of December 30th preparing. I tested every camera, checked every angle, made sure the audio was crystal clear. I called my lawyer, a woman named Sarah Chen, who'd handled classified cases for the Department of Defense before going into private practice. I need you on standby tomorrow night, I told her. I'm documenting evidence of trespassing, conspiracy to commit fraud, and adultery. I'll need everything filed by January 2nd. Sarah didn't ask questions. She'd worked with me before. She knew how I operated. Consider it done, she said. And Olivia? Whatever you're planning, make it clean. It will be, I promised. That night, I drove back to my hotel and slept for 4 hours. Deep, dreamless sleep. The kind of sleep you get when you know exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it. I woke up at dawn on December 31st, New Year's Eve, the last day of 2024. I showered. Put on black jeans and a black sweater. Pulled my hair back. No makeup. No jewelry. Nothing that would distract from what was about to happen. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw the woman I used to be, the woman who walked into hostile territory with nothing but her wits and her training. The woman who'd survived 3 decades in the most dangerous job in the world. Kenneth Carter had forgotten who he married. He'd spent 28 years watching me leave for deployments and come home exhausted. He'd seen the scars. He'd asked the careful questions, but he'd never really understood what I did, what I was capable of. He thought I was soft because I paid for his mother's assisted living. He thought I was weak because I never fought back when Martha called me the Carter money. He thought I was naive because I believed in our marriage. But Olivia Margaret Carter wasn't soft, or weak, or naive. I was patient. And tonight, that patience was going to pay off. I grabbed my laptop, my phone, and my car keys. It was time to go home. I arrived at the lakehouse at 9:30 on New Year's Eve, parked down the road in the same spot I'd used before. The house was lit up like a birthday cake, every window glowing, music playing, cars packed in the driveway. I counted them. 12 vehicles. More than Christmas. They'd invited friends. I sat in my truck and watched through the windows. Watched them dance. Watched them drink. Watched them celebrate in my grandmother's living room like they'd already won. Kenneth was wearing the cashmere sweater I'd bought him in Dublin. Amelia was in a red dress that was too tight and too short for a woman who worked with children. Martha held court in the kitchen, pouring champagne into glasses that belonged to my mother. Mia's kids were running around. The nephew from London was playing guitar. Someone I didn't recognize was taking photos. They were documenting their victory, posting it online for the world to see. Perfect. I opened my laptop and did one final check. The montage was ready. 4 years of surveillance footage edited down to 12 minutes. Every betrayal, every lie, every moment they thought I'd never see. I'd worked on it for 3 days, cut it like a documentary, time-stamped every clip, added subtitles for the audio that might be unclear, made sure every face was visible, every word was audible, every detail was undeniable. The file was loaded onto my iPad, ready to play on the wall-mounted television in the living room. The television I'd bought last year. The one with the smart features that let me control it remotely. I checked my phone. The live stream was set up and ready to broadcast. 247 people in the queue, members of the Loudoun County School Board, the Winchester Church Community Group, the Apple Blossom Elementary PTA, every parent who had a child in Mia's second-grade class, every family who trusted Amelia Gray to guide their teenagers through college applications. I'd sent the invitations earlier that evening, cryptic messages that said, "Live broadcast from the Carter Lakehouse, New Year's Eve special event. You won't want to miss this." People love drama. They'd show up. At 11:45, I grabbed the bottle of Veuve Clicquot I'd bought in Leesburg, $600 champagne, the real stuff, not the cheap Andre they were drinking inside. I walked up to the front door at 11:57. Through the window, I could see them gathering. Someone had started the countdown early. They were singing Auld Lang Syne, arms around each other, swaying. Amelia was sitting on Kenneth's lap in my grandmother's rocking chair. His arms were around her waist. She was wearing the necklace he'd given her for Christmas. They looked happy, in love. Martha was conducting like a choir director. Mia was crying happy tears. Everyone was smiling. I opened the door. The singing stopped. Every head turned. The room went silent except for the music still playing from someone's phone. Kenneth saw me first. His face went white. Amelia scrambled off his lap so fast she nearly fell. Martha's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the hardwood floor. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I walked into my grandmother's living room, carrying a bottle of $600 champagne and my iPad. I was wearing black jeans, a black sweater, and the calmest expression I could manage. "Happy New Year," I said. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic from Seattle was terrible." Kenneth stood up. "Olivia, I didn't know you were back. You said the 28th. I smiled. "Plans changed. You know how it is. Work emergencies. But I wouldn't miss New Year's Eve, with family." I set the champagne on the table, then I pulled out my iPad and connected it to the television. The screen flickered to life. "What are you doing?" Martha said. Her voice was sharp, defensive. I turned to face them. All 12 people crowded into the living room, all of them frozen, all of them starting to understand that something was very wrong. "I thought we'd watch some home movies," I said. "I've been collecting footage, for memories." I hit play. The television screen filled with video, dated December 21st, 2020, Kenneth and Amelia entering the lake house, kissing on the porch, his hand on her back, her laughing as he unlocked the door with a key I never gave him. The next clip. December 15th, 2021. Martha and Mia arriving with groceries, making dinner. Martha saying, She's in Berlin until the 23rd. We have the whole week. Another clip. December 18th, 2022. A Christmas party. 20 people I didn't know. Amelia opening presents under a tree. Kenneth kissing her in my kitchen. The clips kept coming. 4 years of footage, condensed into 12 minutes of undeniable evidence. And then the audio. Martha's voice at full volume through the surround sound speakers. One more trip and we'll make Kenneth file. Virginia is community property, honey. That lake house is half his no matter what her grandmother's will says. Mia's voice. If we can force her to sell in the spring, split it 4 ways, we're looking at maybe $400,000 each. Amelia's voice. Do you really think we could have the wedding here? The room was silent. Nobody moved. Nobody tried to stop the video. I let it play all the way through. 12 minutes. Then I picked up my iPad and looked at Kenneth. In Virginia, I said quietly, property inherited before marriage stays separate. It's not community property. It's not marital assets. This house belonged to my grandmother. She left it to me. You have no claim to it. You never did. Martha opened her mouth, closed it. Her face was red. I turned back to my iPad and opened the livestream app. 263 people were waiting. I hit the broadcast button. Happy New Year, everyone, I said into the camera. Welcome to the Carter family celebration. The live stream lasted 17 minutes. 263 people watched in real time as I walked through the lake house pointing out details. Amelia's clothes in the closet. Kenneth's toiletries in the bathroom. The empty bottle of my grandmother's bourbon in the recycling bin. Martha's calendar on the wall with my deployment schedule marked in red ink. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Or throw things. Or make a scene. I just showed them the truth. By midnight, the video had been shared 412 times. By 1 in the morning, it was trending on local Facebook groups. By 2 in the morning, someone had sent it to the Winchester Star newspaper. I left the lake house at 12:15, walked out the front door while they were still standing there in shock. Drove back to my hotel in Leesburg. Slept for 6 hours. When I woke up on January 1st, 2025, my phone had 93 missed calls. Kenneth. Martha. Mia. Kenneth's lawyer. My lawyer. David Brennan. Pastor Mike from First Baptist. I ignored all of them. Made coffee. Opened my laptop. Started documenting everything for the divorce filing. The dominoes started falling on January 2nd. The Winchester Star published a front-page story. Local insurance agent involved in extramarital affair. The article was careful, factual. They quoted the school board's investigation. Mentioned Amelia's administrative leave. Referenced concerns about professional conduct and moral character. Kenneth's office started getting calls. Clients asking questions. Demanding to speak with someone else. Threatening to take their business elsewhere. By January 3rd, the regional manager had made a decision. Kenneth Carter was placed on unpaid administrative leave pending internal review. I heard about it from Sarah Chen, my lawyer, who heard it from someone at the county clerk's office. She called me at noon. They're moving fast, she said. The insurance company doesn't want the liability. He'll be fired within a week. She was right. January 7th. Kenneth was terminated for moral turpitude. Violation of the company's ethics policy. Conduct unbecoming of a representative of the firm. They gave him 2 weeks severance and escorted him out of the building. 26 years with the company, gone in 5 days. Martha was next. She'd been the treasurer of the Baptist Women's Missionary Union for 18 years. Respected, trusted, the woman who organized the annual missions trip and ran the Christmas charity drive. But the video had gone viral in church circles. Everyone had seen her on camera talking about community property and forcing me to sell and using my money to pay for Kenneth's wedding to his mistress. On January 8th, the BWMU board held an emergency meeting. They asked Martha to step down temporarily. Just until things settled. Just until the scandal died down. She refused, said she'd done nothing wrong, said this was a private family matter. They voted her out anyway, 12-3. She called me that night. Left a voicemail, her voice shaking with rage. You've destroyed this family, you've humiliated us, you've taken everything from us because you couldn't accept that Kenneth didn't love you anymore. I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Mia's fall was quieter but just as complete. She'd been trying to break into real estate for 2 years, part-time, selling houses on weekends and summers while still teaching second grade. She had 11 active listings and a growing client base. But now when potential buyers Googled her name, the first result was the Winchester Star article. The second was the live stream video. The third was a discussion thread on a local moms forum debating whether someone with her judgment should be teaching children. By mid-January, 9 of her 11 clients had requested different agents. The remaining 2 closed their deals and left polite but distant reviews. Her broker suggested she take some time off, rebrand, maybe try a different market. She stopped returning my calls after that, blocked my number, blocked me on social media. Fine by me. Amelia Gray got transferred. The school board couldn't fire her outright. Union protections, due process, but they could make her life difficult. On January 15th, she was informed of a mandatory transfer. A guidance counselor position had opened up at a high school in McDowell County, West Virginia, coal country, 3 hours from Winchester. A school with a 62% poverty rate and a graduation rate that had been declining for a decade. She could accept the transfer or resign. She took the transfer, moved in February. I heard through church gossip that she cried during her last day at Winchester High, that students made her cards, that some parents protested the decision. But most parents were relieved. Because who wants their teenager getting college advice from a woman who helped destroy a marriage and tried to steal a house? Kenneth lasted the longest before he broke. He hired a lawyer, a good one from Charlottesville, who specialized in high-conflict divorces. They filed a response to my petition claiming emotional abandonment, claiming I'd prioritized work over family, claiming he deserved compensation for 28 years of supporting my career. Sarah Chen laughed when she read it. He's going to fight this, she told me. This could take years. I smiled. No, it won't. Because I had documentation of everything. Every payment I'd made on the Middleburg house, every tuition check for the grandkids, every medical bill for Martha, every dollar that had flowed from my accounts into the Carter family for 28 years. And I had 4 years of surveillance footage showing premeditated adultery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and trespassing. On January 23rd, Sarah sent Kenneth's lawyer a settlement offer. Kenneth got nothing, no house, no alimony, no share of my retirement accounts. He could keep his car, his personal belongings, and whatever was left in his checking account. In exchange, I wouldn't file criminal charges for trespassing, wouldn't sue for damages, wouldn't submit the full footage to the Virginia State Bar for review of his lawyer's ethics. His lawyer called Sarah 2 hours later. He'll sign. We never went to trial, never had a single court appearance. Kenneth signed everything on February 4th in a conference room in Leesburg. I wasn't even there. Sarah called me when it was done. It's over, she said. You're free. I hung up the phone and looked out the window of my hotel room. Looked at the mountains in the distance. The same mountains I'd looked at my whole life. And I realized something. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel satisfied. I just felt tired. 1 year later, I'm sitting on the old dock at the lakehouse, watching the sun set over Lake Frederick. It's October. The air smells like wood smoke and fallen leaves. The water is calm, reflecting orange and pink and purple like a painting my grandmother would have hung above the fireplace. I'm holding a cup of coffee. Real coffee, not the instant stuff Kenneth used to buy because it was cheaper. Not the fancy stuff Martha used to serve at her charity luncheons because it was expensive. Just good coffee. The kind my grandmother made every morning in her percolator, strong enough to wake the dead. The house behind me is quiet, clean. Mine. No voices, no laughter, no family gatherings, no fake smiles and forced conversations, just silence and the sound of water lapping against the dock and birds calling to each other in the trees. I sold the Colonial in Middleburg in March, got $2.3 million for it, paid off every debt, closed every joint account, cut every tie to the Carter family except the divorce decree and the restraining order that says Kenneth can't come within 500 feet of this property. I don't miss that house. Don't miss the perfectly manicured lawn and the Christmas lights Martha insisted we put up every year and the dinner parties where I smiled and nodded while Mia talked about her real estate career that I was funding. I don't miss any of it. What I miss is harder to name. I miss believing that marriage meant something. I miss trusting that the man I slept next to for 28 years actually loved me. I miss thinking that family was supposed to protect you, not plot against you. I miss the version of myself who didn't know better. The divorce was final in April. Kenneth moved to Richmond. Got a job at a smaller insurance firm. Took a 70% pay cut. He lasted 6 months before they fired him too. Apparently clients don't trust a man whose affair went viral on social media. Last I heard, he was selling used cars in Fredericksburg. Martha is still in Winchester, still goes to First Baptist, still pretends she did nothing wrong, but she sits in the back now, not the 4th row, and nobody asks her to organize the missions trip anymore. Mia moved to North Carolina, changed her real estate brokerage, changed her last name back to her maiden name, started over. Amelia Gray is still in West Virginia, still teaching. I looked her up once on social media. Her profile is private now. No more photos. No more Instagram stories about lakehouse weekends. I don't feel guilty about any of it. They made their choices. I just made sure those choices had consequences. But here's the thing about consequences. They don't discriminate. They come for everyone. I won. I kept the house. I kept my dignity. I kept my money. I walked away from a marriage that died years before I admitted it was over. But I'm 52 years old, and I'm sitting on this dock alone. No husband, no family. No Christmas card photo with grandkids who don't speak to me anymore because their mothers told them I'm the villain in this story. The church gossip lasted 6 months. People chose sides. Most chose mine, but some didn't. Some said I was cold, calculated, that I should have handled it privately. That airing dirty laundry on a live stream was cruel and vindictive. Maybe they're right. I don't go to First Baptist anymore. I tried once, back in June, walked in and felt every eye on me, heard the whispers, saw the way people shifted in their seats when I walked past. I left before the sermon started, haven't been back since. Freedom isn't what I thought it would be. I thought it would feel triumphant, powerful, like the end of a mission when you've eliminated the threat and saved the asset and everything worked exactly according to plan. But this doesn't feel like victory. It feels like survival. I survived a marriage that was killing me slowly. I survived betrayal by people I'd sacrificed for. I survived 28 years of being the successful woman who still had to bow her head to her mother-in-law and pretend I didn't notice when they called me the Carter money behind my back. I survived. But survival isn't the same as healing. The wind picks up, moves through the trees. In the distance, I can see the apple orchards where I used to work as a teenager. The same orchards where my grandmother picked apples during the Depression. Where my great-grandmother worked before her. Carter women, 4 generations of us, strong, independent, successful. And lonely. My grandmother used to say something when I was young. I'd forgotten it until today, sitting here on this dock. She said it once after my grandfather died, when I asked her if she was sad. "Carter women don't cry," she told me. "But we never quite heal either." I didn't understand it then. I was 23 and invincible, and heading off to Langley to save the world. Now I'm 52 and I understand perfectly. We don't cry because crying is weakness, and Carter women aren't weak. We survive. We endure. We win. But winning costs something. And sometimes what it costs is the ability to let people in. To trust. To believe that someone might love you for who you are, instead of what you can provide. I raise my coffee mug to the dying light, to the pink and orange sky reflecting on water my grandmother fished in 70 years ago. To liberation. And to the price we pay for it. The sun sets. The sky goes dark. The house behind me glows with warm light. And I sit on this dock, victorious and alone, and wonder if freedom was worth it. Then I remember Kenneth's laugh as they planned to steal my house. And I decide that yes, it was.